a sulky, over-funky, kinda hunky superhero. A two-fisted and electrically transistored superhero. An exotically neurotic and aquatic superhero.
Welcome back, my fellow agents. It is I, your agent of animated awesome, X7, also the host of Xenorama, the podcast of heroes and monsters. Today is Monday, and that means it's animated cartoon day, animated series day. Animated cartoon is kind of redundant now, isn't it? I do recognize that. Today, we're actually going to do two episodes of Captain America from 1966. I figured that half hours, since I'm doing half hours for Ultraman or half hour live actions, if it's a half hour show, we can do two episodes. I think that'll work out well. Anyway, that's the news for today. So, as we all know, it's time to...
When Captain America throws his mighty shield, all those who chose to oppose his shield must yield.
And this first episode is from Avengers 19 and 20, which were, of course, written by Stan Lee and penciled by Don Heck. Number 19 was inked by, pardon me one second here, was inked by Dick Ayers, and number 20 was inked by the wonderful Wally Wood, who deserves way more credit than he ever gets outside of comic book people. Let's see. Avengers 20 was first published on September 1965, and this episode came out on October 24th, 1966. So the release date was July 8th, and then previously for Avengers 19 was June 8th, so a month apart. So it took them about a year to get this from when, they just took all the current ones and some older ones. I think that Gantry Lawrence just took the episodes, or took the issues, and then made the episodes what they could fit into without giving any background to many things, like Goliath being there instead of as Giant Man. They just showed him up. And here in this episode as well, we have a similar issue, right? With as we'll see. All right. That is the coming of the swordsman. So this is where the swordsman infiltrates, wants to be. Our heroes are bored, and Pietro. This is how they show him racing around. And actually, I think Don Heck's style, which is not as dynamic as Kirby's, and he gets a lot of flack for it, really lends itself to Gantry Lawrence. And he finds the swordsman there, who is Jacques Duquesne, but I don't remember when he gets that name, actually, ever. But I don't ever remember it until I was actually kind of surprised when in the Hawkeye series that he showed up and was the swordsman. But he is, and that's okay. Let's see. I'm going to click over here. We're going to use a little audio here today from the show because it's kind of fun, I think. Is that what I want to do? Yes. Here's Wanda.
Power.
What's going on down here?
It's Captain America.
Who's the slumbering stranger?
He calls himself the swordsman.
So did no one think that Wanda and Quicksilver would have European accents, especially Eastern European accents? Although we didn't know their names were Maximoff. Now, did we? But you would have thought, I never heard them in accents until it dawned on me that why would they sound Midwestern? Look at that fancy Dan computer. Probably has a gig of memory. And the swordsman has to get away because he wanted to join, but really, I guess, I don't even remember what his goal is here. But it ends up being trying to kill Cap.
Washington, D.C., where Captain America's opened letter attracts the attention of a hoodlum. who realizes that the swordsman would be most interested in any letter from the Avengers. I figured.
So this is presented as a Captain America cartoon, but it's completely an Avengers story. All the heroes get good time. You can see Colonel Nick Fury of the CIU, Central Intelligence Unit, maybe? They don't say what it is. But I just found that funny. Special delivery. How'd it get to this loser? And so he gives it to the swordsman, who sends it back to Cap to pretend so he can get back in. It's a trap, of course. Cap's all super happy, and Pietro says, how come you get to be a part-time Avenger? And he's just like, my record, sonny boy. It really played into Cap's age when he was still only, maybe 25 or maybe 27. I would guess he wasn't that much older than any of them. But now they both, and Hawkeye, this was a running thing in those first couple of, dozen stories of Cap's Kooky Quartet, where both Hawkeye and Pietro wanted to be the leader of the Avengers. And it just never quite worked out for him. That's for sure. So there's a zing. He zinged him twice. It looks like he shot him with 2 arrows. But there's Hawkeye's like, wait, it's a trap for Cap? I better find him. Too late. Lots of sound effects, once again doing the heavy work for the animation. But this has some better animation. I don't know if they'd gotten more money or what, but they did a good job here. Now, Pietro, I don't know that he'd figured out how he could fly, but in the comic books, he could run so fast it would lift him off the ground giving him the power of flight virtually, or the power of flight, as they always said with Thor and his hammer. But there he is, just floating around talking to them. They're not even running. I just thought that was funny. So, cliffhanger here. The swordsman's gonna kill Cap. If he doesn't, they don't make him the leader of the Avengers. See, he's gonna stab him, but Cap jumps. And now we're into episode 2. Pietro saves him. Wanda once again uses her hex power. And the battles are on. You can see Quicksilver floating around up in the top. Much more jumping. I think Cap's jumping down, but did that say boink? Yep, boink. Apparently that word didn't mean the same thing in 1966 as it meant in the 80s. Uh-oh. That looks like an Asian sort of house. The Mandarin is the unfortunately named Mandarin. I think they've given him, wasn't any. It says, not as bad as the Yellow Claw now, is it? I just figured they should have called him the Iron Claw. That would have been easier. I think he's Shang-Chi's father now, but since there. But he teleports the swordsman out there, and then we get the origin of Hawkeye. A very brief origin of Hawkeye here. He talks about how he met the sword. He realizes that he knows him, but the swordsman doesn't recognize the archer, young Clint Barton, as Hawkeye. And this runs through the next 40 issues, clear into I don't even know, whenever he joins in 114, but apparently they get on better. Yep, I mean, this Roy Thomas fleshed it out a bit more, but that's pretty much what it is. And he left him for dead. Oops. And now we've got the Mandarin, who wants the swordsman's help to destroy Iron Man, who's not even in this issue or episode, except. And the funny thing is that I found here in both this episode and the next one is that Gantry Lawrence didn't bother explaining who the Mandarin was, didn't bother explaining that of his 10 rings of power. Not the same ones from the MCU, that's for sure. And he fixes up the swords. He just zaps the swordsman's sword, and all of a sudden it's good. And here is
resists the will of the Mandarin. Now, observe. At the touch of my mystic rings, 2 energy spheres rise from beneath the floor.
Parlor tricks aren't my cup of tea.
Call this a parlor trick?
Can't hold my sword.
Uh-oh. There we go. Let's try this again. Here's what I really wanted to say. That's where he's zapping him, and
America is the real enemy. Time enough to tackle him later, after he's served his purpose.
So he's going to betray the Mandarin anyway, which I'm sure the Mandarin also knows, and is going to betray the swordsman anyway. Villains. There's no honor among thieves or supervillains, really.
Okay, Fu Manchu, let's talk.
Ah, you have come to your senses.
So yes, whoever did it tried to give the Mandarin a faux accent, and they do kind of slur the R's and L's. It's not the worst. It's not the best. But I like the fact that he actually called him Fu Manchu, which is interesting because you could use that as a. I mean, Marvel didn't know they'd be licensing the rights to Fu Manchu ever. So they make a holographic image of Ultraman, Iron Man, send it to the Avengers, who says, accept the swordsman as a member of the Avengers. And they're like, okay. And Hawkeye is like, oh, not me. Plants the bomb. But then he realizes that it might blow up Wanda because he thinks Wanda's too beautiful to die. The Mandarin shows up holographically, of course, projected. The swordsman in his tidy whities there. The things you could get away with that they don't even think about now. But, they just use the panel right from the comic book. And he's like, I'm going to fix it. I'm going to fix it. Of course, there's a misunderstanding. It's like having Barney Fife floating around. But the sword is very useful. It's got fire and all sorts of destructo rays. Pietro puts it out. Let's go back here. We'll get this little soundbite.
My slightest hex is needed now. Oh no! A cloud of steam resulting from setting off the automatic sprinklers.
And that's exactly what happened. The Mandarin's annoyed that he's used and vows never to have a partner again, which is actually pretty smart on his part, because those never work out well now, do they? Now, in the comic book, the swordsman doesn't show up again for several more issues. He does show up in other comic books, but here he comes back to talk to the Avengers, which is just it's mind-blowing that they would do this.
Orders. When I am worthy to join the Avengers, I'll be back. Till then, so long.
He wasn't really so bad after all. Perhaps one day he will prove himself worthy of being an Avenger.
So he does, in approximately 190 issues, more or less, 85 issues. He is an official Avenger, and not in the MCU. Jacques Duquesne, although he turned out to be a good guy in Hawkeye, made me like him a lot more. And because the Mantis is a different character completely, and this one did not like the comic book Mantis. All right. Oh, we're gonna take a little break here, and where's my stop sharing button? And we'll be right.
The Marvel superheroes have arrived, superpowered from the forehead to the toes. Watch them change their very shape before your nose.
All right, we are back with episode 9, The Bitter Taste of Defeat. Now, this is from Avengers 21 and 22, in which, as we'll find out here momentarily, the Enchantress is working her magic against our heroes to make them jumpy and whiny, as we'll see.
At Avenger headquarters, it is as if something unseen is slowly spreading its poisons, edging tempers.
Hawkeye, hands off. Simmer down, Glamour Pants. I'm just...
Those are right out of Stan's, that's completely Stan right there. So Glamour Pants and Methuselah. Just once I wished Hawkeye would have called him Methuselah in the MCU, because that would have made this old comic book nerd laugh. But Hawkeye wants to fight, and usually Pietro's right in there with him, but no. Hawkeye goes out to clear his head, Cap goes on. Wanda says, "Why must we always fight? Oh dear!" And they don't realize here's the Enchantress. Allura is her name. Um, I don't remember who her sister is off the top of my head. She has one. Yes. So, and she moves right in. We don't get they skip the entire origin of Power Man. He's got nearly the same powers as Wonder Man, except that he didn't die and turn into an ionic being of a ridiculous amount of power. I think he's in the Thunderbolts. Don't know. Don't care. But he wasn't a bad guy. I mean, he was a jerk, at least early on, because some of Stan's heroes were great. Did I ask you all to like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment? Please do. And we'll go from there. I'll even not mention the Bowl of Hummus of Perfection. But some of Stan's villains were great, and some were just pretty two-dimensional, or one-dimensional, as the case may be. But they got better. I mean, and then now they're, I don't know. They've tried to reform Doom, and I don't get it. But that's me. So there's the first appearance of Power Man with no explanation as who he is. So Allura is using her power of illusion, and she's also to make people fall in love with her. We've seen that dozens of times. Dozens, I tell you, dozens. But there's a nice looking monster. And of course, it's an illusion. They topple buildings, they knock down, they blow up cars, they're in trouble. Then they get another call, or somehow they have a trouble detector, a trouble alert, if you will. And Pietro goes zooming down, and there's a train coming. He's lying on the tracks. They blow up some more stuff. And they exhaust all of the emergency fund. And of course, Hawkeye and Cap get into it again because Hawk's a young jerk, and they're probably a little edgy right now, I'm sure.
No, Hawkeye.
No, Cap. We can't waste our energies fighting among ourselves.
Fighting. He knows better than to tangle with me. You.
Why I oughta. So, and then they get a court order. A nice look at it's like if it had come on a scroll, it wouldn't have been any more formal now, would it? Which I find hilarious.
Avengers.
The end of the Avengers?
Dun, dun,
First
dun.
step in the Enchantress's diabolical plan. What will her next move be?
What will it be? All right. We're a third of the way through the episode. Yeah, look at that old phone. And just to let you know when it rings, because you hear it ring, but they also let you know it's ringing so you can read it. The Enchantress works her magic there on Cap because everyone else is left. And he's probably moping again, thinking about, Bucky's alive.
The glint of the stars. In every flash of light, my sorcery will follow you.
It will follow you. But look at there's his the tracer they have, which gives them out ticker tape, and she's trying to triangulate where the Enchantress is. They don't even know about Power Man yet, and the beeping is making Cap go crazy.
No. If only the others were here.
If only.
You will come crawling to me on your knees to surrender.
No. Never. I'll find her, but not on my knees.
No.
Cap has a problem putting his mask on. I mean, this scene goes on for about 3 seconds where he keeps adjusting it. It made me laugh. They just, again, they do animate some figures on their own where they've drawn them themselves, and you can kind of tell when that happens. So the Enchantress sends out her magical crow, or raven, knowing, Norse mythology. A raven is highly more likely than a crow, because Odin had ravens, 2 of them. And they trap Hawkeye. This is the first time the Avengers actually meet Power Man. The first 2 episodes have been about the Enchantress. And this is Power Man, who's Eric Jostin or Jostin. Who knows which one it is. Marvel just can change names on a whim. For years I said Magneto, and it took me forever to go to Magneto. I still think Magneto looks better, but since the Super Six have a Magneto Man, I can live with it. Cap's wandering around. The spell is with all the bright lights, which is a good spell because in New York, everywhere, I mean, there's bright lights. And finally, he gives up and flings himself off the bridge. I would assume that's whatever bridge it goes, Brooklyn Bridge, maybe. We'll call it that, sure. Is he dead? Dun, dun, dun. All right. So, yeah. And there's Power Man, famous Avenger with strange witness. They just accept that he's a good guy with a mask on and everything. Never seen him before. But finally...
It's I who did. Me and the Enchantress framed the Avengers with spells and illusions.
Fool, be silent.
We sent them on wild goose chases to...
You braggart, you're talking too much. Get him, Power Man. Something wrong here.
And fortunately, she's not dumb. I mean, but she... of course, she chose a minion that would just willingly believe her because he's in love with her. So we get into a big fight with Cap at first. Look, he's got a recording. Now, we don't see the reel-to-reel tape recorder. They've captured Hawkeye, and she set a spell to have the plant kill him. It's probably the only time Hawkeye's ever been quiet. There's her pose. I mean, Don Heck drew attractive women. And yep, the battle is on.
But not when we are 4 Avengers, united once more. Your plot has failed, Enchantress.
Ha! I, the Enchantress, declare a plague on your teamwork. I shall succeed another day.
There she goes and disappears. So they return. Mortis finds them. I don't know why they wouldn't have done the Wonder Man story, except that Simon Williams was dying when he got turned into Wonder Man. I suppose that would have been a bit of a downer. And again, it wasn't a Cap story per se. This has a lot of Cap in it, but it's definitely, both of these are Avengers stories. So everyone's happy again. And is this where it says it?
But we were feuding.
Yeah, let me scroll back about 2 more seconds. Come on. Let's see if I can get to it properly. But the tape is going to clear them, and
With my apologies, Leader Man. I don't even recall what we were feuding about, Hawkeye.
aww.
And besides, the way things turned out, I'd say the Avengers were right on the job, all along.
All right, and that's the end of that episode. Produced by Gantry Lawrence Animation, and it's better. There's more animation in this than the previous ones, which is kind of nice. So, agents, I hope you've enjoyed both episodes today. We will be doing this regularly, and for our next, I think I've decided what the next cartoon will be. We're going to simplify that because 52 episodes would take forever. We're going to do about 5 episodes of the series per podcast. But having said all that, this is X7, the host of Zenorama, the podcast of heroes, getting ready to sign off. Remember, if you see a blonde dressed in very strange green leggings and is beautiful beyond belief, get a hold of your shield there. You're going to need it.
Striking superhero, change to Viking superhero.
And until our next assignment, this is X7 signing off.
Flinging reel, swinging shield, flinging superhero. They're the latest, they're the greatest, ultimate superheroes. The Marvel superheroes have arrived.